Hello there everybody, this is Dax. On this video I will be discussing the seductive nature of evil. It's designed to go alongside the divinations video I've already made that deals with this particular subject. Now at the end of this video we will be having a meditation on this issue, so feel free to join us until the very end of the video when we will be going through that meditation together. As for right now, I do ask that if you enjoy the content of this video that you please reach down there and click the like and subscribe buttons, and also up there there's a nice little bell icon that will inform you of whenever I post anything new to this channel. So, the seductive nature of evil. Before we really get into this, we're going to need to step to the side a little bit and go into the definition of the word evil, because everybody, whether they realize it or not, they define the word evil differently. You've got the biblical definition of the word evil, which is very satanic. It basically means the lack of God, or the opposite of God. I have said it before and I'll say it again. My problem with this description is that it diminishes the power of God. It actually takes away God's authority to bring in the concept that you can either be of God or not of God. If you can exist outside of God, you're actually making God weaker by giving it that definition. But nevertheless, there is the biblical definition of evil, which means the lack of God. And that does need to be taken into consideration during this discussion, simply because there are so many of you out there that will live by this definition of evil. Now, another definition of evil, the one that I tend to subscribe to, is actually very similar to the biblical definition of evil. It's not quite there. The difference being that I consider God to be omnipresent. God is everywhere, everything. You are God. I'm God. That fireplace that I'm pointing at right now is God. The tree over there is God. The chair that's sitting over here upside down, that's God. The computer screen you're looking at is God. I consider God to be omnipresent, and because of that, God is everywhere and everything. So with that in mind, the definition of evil that I tend to subscribe to is in the belief that you are separate from God. You're not actually separate from God. You're still God experiencing himself. But if you believe that you are a separate being from God, if you believe that you are hidden from God, if you believe that you are operating outside of God's will, then you're dealing with my definition of the word evil. It should be pointed out that many of the esoteric wisdom traditions hold to the idea that there is no such thing as evil. And this is something I actually agree with. As I've already said, I consider evil to be the belief in separation, not actual separation. But if you believe that you are separate from God, it will lead you in several directions. It will lead you to be selfish, because since you believe that you are separate, you believe that you need to protect yourself. You believe that the things you do for yourself will not be affected by the things you do to others. It's the whole karma thing. People who believe that they are separate, they believe that they can do horrible things to other people in order to get what they want, and they think that it won't come back on them. For me, that's the ultimate definition of evil, but it's all a falsehood, because they are still part of God, they are still God experiencing themselves, and so it will come back to haunt them. You know, you can't hurt yourself without consequences. So now that I've spent some time discussing the definition of evil, let's talk about the seductive nature of evil So now that I've gotten that down and I've discussed the definition of the word evil as it will be used in this video, let's take a little bit of time to discuss the seductive nature of evil. One thing that I want to be perfectly clear, and I say this on all of my videos, is whenever you're watching any of my videos, I want you to listen to this heart, or your heart rather. I want you to listen to your heart and your gut. If anything that I'm saying to you does not ring true, go with your own heart. Go with your own gut instinct. Remember, it is the job of your heart to protect you. Listen to it. Your heart cares about you. I care about you too, but I do not have the vested interest in you that your heart has. Listen to your heart. So, back to the subject at hand. The seductive nature of evil, much of it comes from the belief that you are separated from God. It comes from the belief that somehow you are not part of what's going on around you. And when you have this belief, it is accompanied by the feeling that you are somehow at your surroundings' mercy. It's accompanied by the belief that you are a poor, tiny, weak little thing living in this cold, cruel world. And of course, once again, none of that is true. The world is part of you. You are part of it. You are all God. It's all God. All of it. The stars in the sky, the ground that you're standing on, the flower that I just now looked down at the side and noticed, the pretty purple little flower there. That's part of me. The divine entity that is not just up there, but all around. That is truly the creator and is truly in charge of everything. I'm a part of that. You are a part of that. You are a part of me. We're all interconnected. So the belief that you are somehow at the mercy of your surroundings is not a true belief. But because you have that belief, you're constantly falling into survival mode. And survival mode says, I need what's mine. I need my food. Who gives a fuck who has to go without food? I need it. I want it. It's going to me. A very selfish, evil concept. There's actually a group of people that I used to know that was their actual definition of evil, was selfishness. They considered good to be selflessness and evil to be selfishness. That concept leads to some very interesting ideas, because if you're going by those definitions, you quickly realize that you cannot survive without being both good and evil. Just some food for thought. Kind of off subject, but this is a group of people that I used to know that had this belief, and it led me to some very interesting contemplations. But the seduction of evil really does have a lot to do with your survival instincts. I need what's mine. You see it in politics all the time, where aspects of God are willing to kill other aspects of God because this group wants what this group has and they feel they need it and they feel they have the right to take it. You visit some of the more dangerous areas in the world and you will get to see this firsthand, where you usually have a group of people that are really nothing more than bullies, but they are taking what they want from whoever they want, and they do absolutely horrible things in order to get it. They have absolutely zero concept whatsoever that they are harming a part of themselves by doing this. Another aspect of the seductive nature of evil is, once again, it all really keeps going back to the same thing, the belief that you are separate from God. Because in a lot of ways, materialism is a direct offshoot, it is a direct creation of the belief that you are a separate being from God. Materialism is the belief that only matter exists. And because a materialist believes that only matter exists, this is accompanied by the belief that matter, material things, have value. This means that a person believes that it is important to have a nice big house. Important beyond the safety and just the comfort that it provides. There's also status involved. This is a big house. It is grand, it looks wonderful, and it's mine. So having this house makes me better. That is materialistic thinking. You see people doing that with their cars all the time. You see people doing that with their lovers all the time. There are people everywhere that have absolutely zero interest in having a good lover who completes them. What they want is a hot lover that makes them look good. Once again, the seductive nature of evil. You can also look at the seductive nature of evil in our pop culture. For instance, if you watch Star Wars, Darth Vader is a very cool looking dude. He's big, he's powerful, people fear him, he's got this big flowing cape, he has a palace and a fleet at his command. He is a sales pitch for the idea that evil will get you what you want. Now, of course, Star Wars, it gets a little bit more, well, it gets a lot more into depth on the subject than that. And if you're actually paying any attention while watching Star Wars, you realize Darth Vader has paid a very hefty price to have the things that he has. And he would actually be better off to have not paid that price and not have any of this shit. But that's kind of what the seductive nature of evil does. It seduces you into wanting these things so that you will voluntarily destroy yourself. Now, of course, Star Wars is obviously not the only example of this that you can find in our pop culture. Almost any, well, not just any James Bond villain. I was about to say any James Bond villain fits this description. But James Bond himself fits this description. James Bond is not a good guy. He's a professional assassin. He's a hired killer. What does he do? He has lots of money, which is in and of itself neither good or bad. Money is a tool. And like any other tool, it can be used according to the wills of the person who owns it. But he has lots of money. He visits lots of distant, faraway, exotic places. He fucks women left and right with zero concern for their well-being. And he kills people constantly. This is the good guy. The good guy in those movies is the guy that goes around fucking women left and right without any concern for them and killing people all over the place. He's the hero. And part of the sales pitch to make him acceptable is they put him in a nice suit. They put him in a nice, hot, expensive-looking car, and they send him to all of these exotic locations to go, this is what life is about. So James Bond, not just the villains fit this description too, but in James Bond, even the hero is a very seductive force of evil. And of course, another pop culture reference, one that I really could not say I've completed this video unless I've spent time discussing it, would be the movie Wall Street. Because the character of Gordon Gekko, who he is the villain of the movie Wall Street, played by Michael Douglas, very good job there, but Gordon Gekko has this absolutely twisted speech that he gives in that movie, where he discusses how greed is good. And one of the dangerous things about this, and he makes a very effective argument trying to say that greed is good. That's the problem with intelligence. Intelligence is not interested in the truth. Intelligence is not interested in what's real. Intelligence is interested in justifying doing whatever it is that you want to do. It's about making up excuses. And that's what the greed is good argument is. It is a very intelligent, well thought out argument as to why it is good to do horrible things in order to get what you want. Because this is what Gordon Gekko wanted to be doing anyway. And of course, the danger with that is that today there are so many people on Wall Street who grew up with the movie Wall Street. They saw that speech and it defined their lives. I once saw an interview with Michael Douglas where he was commenting on how these Wall Street people would go up to him and tell him that that scene in that movie defined their lives. Greed is good, and that's what they became. Once again, intelligence. It's only interested in what you want to be doing, not whether or not it's the right thing to do. But selfish greed, it is definitely an example of the seductive nature of evil. But let's spend some time moving beyond that. There are other aspects to the seductive nature of evil. Now, I keep discussing the seductive nature of evil. The divinations video that this video is intended to operate alongside was actually labeled the beautiful evil. Very similar meaning, but beautiful evil and seductive evil, they do have slightly different meanings to them. But for me, the inspiration behind that video was the experience I had when I was a teenager. I think I was a teenager at the time. Yeah, I was a teenager at the time, when I had an experience with a succubus. And one thing that I want to point out is that at the time I had this experience, I did not know what a succubus was. I had not heard any of the myths or legends. But this happened to me, and later on when I discovered the myths and legends, I realized, holy shit, that's what happened to me. Now, let me describe to you the myths and legends of the succubus, and then I will go in and I will describe my experiences with the succubus. Now, a succubus and an incubus are just male and female versions of the same thing. The incubus is male, the succubus is female. And in legends, what happens here is the succubus or the incubus, they are a demonic entity that will sit on people's chests while they sleep, feed nightmares and horrible thoughts into them, and they will feed off of the negative energies that you produce. They're very similar to psychic vampires in that regard. They're eating your emotions. So that's the legend of the incubus slash succubus. The incubus is the male, the succubus is the female. Oh yeah, and as an addendum to the legend, oftentimes the succubus or incubus will try to convince you to be their lover, so they will feed off of your energy even more. They will actually try to get you to have sex with them, not just once, but on a regular basis, because they want to eat your energy. So now, to my experiences with a succubus. I was a teenage boy, laying on my back in bed. Once again, I had no idea what a succubus or an incubus even was. I had never heard of the legends or anything. But I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden, there was a beautiful woman sitting on my chest. Completely naked. I remember her having, like, pale skin, dark curly hair, just absolute beauty. You know, it's like you couldn't find a woman any more beautiful than this. Just a seductress on every level. My experience did not last very long, however, because I looked into her eyes and I saw that there was something twisted in her eyes that I just did not want anything to do with. And so I evoked the name of Jesus, told her to leave, told her I wanted nothing to do with her, and poof, she left. But that was my experience with a succubus. I had one visit me when I was a teenager, and she tried to seduce me. And thankfully, I had enough foresight, I had enough of an inkling that this woman was after something very bad, that I drove her away. And I've never dealt with one since, thank God. But this experience is largely what inspired me to produce the Beautiful Evil Divinations video. And the reason why it inspired me to do this is because evil will oftentimes pretend to be good in order to get you to support it. One of the things that I remember as a very small child, sitting there watching Battlestar Galactica on TV, all those beautiful shiny Cylons and everything, and I was talking to my mom. I was probably like 3 or 4 at the time, and we were going on about how pretty they are. My mom looks at me and goes, yeah, oftentimes beautiful things are evil. And so once again, that plays into the Beautiful Evil video that I produced on divinations. It was inspired by the succubus experience, though. And once again, thank God I chose to drive her away instead of becoming her lover, because who knows what would have happened to me had I chosen differently. Because there was every reason there to do it. To say that this thing that was sitting on my chest was gorgeous is an understatement, but there was just something so dark and twisted in her eyes that I just didn't want anything to do with that. So, but you will find that an awful lot in mysticism. Evil entities pretending to be good. And one video that I would recommend that you check out, it's a video from a man named Sun2K. That's his YouTube title. I'll post a link to it up there at the top of the screen. But it's called 9 Years Facing the Wall. And in it he discusses his experiences where he sought out spiritual teachers that he thought were really good people. And the point of the video is to teach you how to recognize when it's really someone who's not so good, who's simply pretending. And the basic gist of what he was pointing out in the video is you can tell whether someone is good or evil based on their actions. Don't listen to their words, listen to their actions. Observe what they are actually doing. Once again, you go back to Jesus Christ, you can recognize the tree by the fruit that it produces. A rotten tree will always produce rotten fruit. Look at someone's life. What do they leave in their wake? Do they leave healthy, happy people with good lives, or do they leave behind people who have been broken and destroyed? And I think that's probably a good place to end this video for now. When it comes to the beautiful evil, when it comes to the seductive nature of evil, if you're not certain that the person or thing or entity or political group or whatever else, if you're not certain of whether they're good or evil, or even if you think you are certain but you just want to double check. Check on what they leave behind in their wake. What have they created? When this person, thing, organization, whatever, when they pass through someone's life, does that person at the end of that experience have a better life, or are they destroyed? And that will tell you whether this thing is good or evil. Be very careful with seduction. Don't let yourself be seduced by evil. Do not let yourself be seduced by or take the sides of or support something that leaves destruction in its wake. Now it's time to do the meditation that I promised you at the beginning of this video. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a meditative state. It's where you simply empty the mind, blank out the mind. You go to the body, which means that you feel from head to toe every sensation that your body is experiencing. I'm posting a link to a video up there right now that's on my channel. It tells you how to do this if you feel the need to go through and learn how. So, let's clear the mind. Feel the sensation in your body from head to toe. If you hear any distracting noises in the background, use those noises. Make them yours. Use them as a tool to make your meditation more sound, not less. Clear the mind. Feel that sensation. Use any distractions to your advantage. And now, we will tap into your true self, your higher consciousness. You may tap into God, divine providence, whatever you wish to call the true creator. Just tap into this. And pray for the guidance that we will recognize when an evil force is trying to seduce us, and just as importantly, what we need to do about it. So tap into God, forge that connection out the top of your head to the entity themselves, and just build that relationship with God. Now that we have strengthened that link, start praying to God that you can recognize when evil forces are attempting to seduce you. Forces that wish to create the illusion that you are separate from God. Delve deeply into that desire to know. Delve deeply into it here in your heart, not your mind. Bring that prayer into your heart. God, please make me aware of anyone who is attempting to destroy me for their own ends. And please show me what I need to do about this. continue on with this meditation for as long as you believe you need to. I am Dax. I love you very much. Always remember, you are important and your needs are valid. See you next time.